Hi everyone, and welcome to this video about building a website with Lovable. Yesterday's videos was all about building the basics of how to build a website with Lovable. If you want to do the basics, just look at my other video where I share those basics of how to build this website so it looks like as it is currently looking. And today what we will be doing is that we will add some more advanced features to this website. But first, let me quickly show you what we have built, and then I show you what we will be building next. So what we have is a website here where we have a navigation bar. So we have here AI Builder Academy, workshops, about and success stories, view, schedule, and book now. We have a hero section. We have two buttons that are not totally clickable yet. Choose your learning path. So you have two learning paths here, featured workshops. You can also click on view all workshops, success stories, and a footer. So yesterday we started and working on some of those buttons, but in a very basic version. So far it's only a front-end application. So basically this website, and we have in this website several options that we already built. So we can click here on this button and can have a look how the website currently looks like. So we can click on workshops here. And then yesterday we built here this part, which is not as beautiful yet, but it does its job in the way that if we click by workshop, by date, and by location, we see these different workshops. And we have a footer here. And then what we also have, we have an about page. So we built this about page. We changed this image, and I shared with you how you can change that image, about AI Builder Academy, the journey to mastery, our mission, and how to do that. And then we also made it possible that you can click on view schedule, and you also end up here in this workshop page. However, what this workshop or like this application is not yet able to do is we can't click on explore workshops, we can't click on watch demo, and also these parts here, the book now is not yet clickable. And on top of that, all of this information currently is hard-coded in our application. What does hard-coded mean? Hard-coded basically means that it's just as an example directly in the code. And obviously, especially for you as you're not yet maybe coding or you're just starting to code, it's always a bit of a hassle to not be understanding of, okay, do I really now have to go into code and look at this code? It's just not as effective maybe. And so that's the reason why there are obviously better versions of also making it more intuitive and easier to input those different workshops for your website. But on top of that, obviously also you want to sell your workshops. And currently, if we click on book now, nothing happens. And we also have some issues here. For example, Zara is not, the image is broken. And some of those links here also don't work. And we included yesterday a link for a very basic website. So if you click on contact us, you basically can send an email here to me or like this email that we set up, but it's not very beautiful and it's not really like a contact form. Don't save. And so for that reason, what we will be doing today is working on this website and making it better. And what I will show you today is especially how we can connect this to Supabase. So Supabase is a database that directly works together with Lovable. And in that sense, we make it more possible to actually build systems and business logics into this website. And that's what we will be doing today. So let's close this here. And when you followed me in the last video, then you saw that we have here on the left-hand side Lovable. So this is an AI agent, and we can talk with our AI agent and ask it to do those things that we then basically want to see in our application. And what is super important here is that what we do is that we always have one state, which is basically, okay, this is how it currently looks like. And then like, what is our desired stage to build this, or our desired state. So let's go through the website, and let's say that we now want to improve this book now. So for this book now, what we need to do is to better understand, okay, how do these different kind of, you could say, cards here look like? So if we have our workshops, currently those workshops, if we click on book now, nothing happens. And also about our workshops, they are kind of in, you could say, hard-coded, as I said before. So we can click here on the code. And if we click on the code here, let me quickly see, then this is the index page, so the main page. So we have here return, header, hero, workshop categories, featured workshops, and so on. And so what we need to go is to the workshop categories, or even more interestingly, we have to go to the page that actually hosts those workshops. So if we click on view all workshops, then this is our page here, and view all workshops, and this is where we can also go. So if you go to view all workshops, let's quickly do this. That's the page here. We need to see pages. And here we have workshops. Then what we see here is this one, constant workshops, and they're all hard-coded. So obviously this is something we can keep, right? It's like 6 workshops, and we can say, okay, why not just type this in? It's very easy. It's very simple. So obviously we can do this, and we have here all of the workshops that show up in the website. So very simple, very easy. So if we change something here, it will directly show in the website. So let's leave it that way. And let's say, okay, we want to have this book now button. So let's ask Lovable and say, hi, Lovable. Now for the website, the book now button is not working. But I want people, when they click on the workshops, to be able to book a workshop. How can I best do that? So now let's see. And there are various options, because obviously what we could also do is to make it even more simple to say book now. And then what happens is that we have, for example, a Stripe account, and we directly just click on the Stripe account, and there it will be happening. But let's see what Lovable is saying to us. Option 1, simple email booking. The quickest solution would be to make the book now buttons open an email client with pre-filled information about the specific workshop and session. Option 2, external booking platform. If you use a platform like Calendly, we could link each workshop to its booking page. It's also an option. Option 3, custom booking form. We could create a modal dialog that opens when users click book now with the form to collect their information. Option 4, full booking system with database. For a complete solution, you would need a backend to store bookings, send confirmations, etc. This would require connecting to Supabase. Which approach would you prefer? So we said we would prefer like the full booking system, because this is obviously here the idea of building a website that is completely working by itself without having additional systems. And obviously we can have additional systems, but for each of those options, when I think about them, simple email booking. So we book this by email. What does it mean? A user books by email, then we need a system that in our email, we do something with this information. And at the same time, what about payments? Because we want to collect payments. So this is an option that might be super easy in the first sense for the website, but then gives us more automations that we need to build up in the backend. With the option 2, also possible, but then we have to kind of set this up in 2 different spaces, because we have to set this up, for example, in Luma together with setting it up here. It's possible, but it's not such a smooth user experience. And maybe, in the end, we want to do this anyways. So we have to do 2 systems, but maybe we just start with this one here, and then later on we go and build it in a different version as well. So it could be possible, but what we would be having is, okay, for example, build your first AI chatbot. This would mean that we have to build an event, for example, in Luma that says build your first AI chatbot, and we put all in this information in. We connect it there in Luma with Stripe, so that we can here collect this amount of money. And then we can also click on book now. And when we click on book now, then basically all of these 3 dates need a separate event again in there. So it's kind of like building it double, you could say, which is obviously okay if you say, okay, these are different platforms where you also want to promote those workshops. Then obviously that's an option. But for the sake of also building it here with Supabase and figuring out how to best build it with Supabase, we will do this here in the platform. And also for the sake of simplicity and automation, because obviously you want to have the best solution for you. So all the other options are possible, but they also bring some additional automation later on. The same with option 3. We could create a modal dialog that opens when users click Book Now with a form to collect their information. So option 3 is also kind of an option, but the problem with option 3 is, okay, how do we connect this then with the payment options? And obviously we want to have a payment option. And so that's one of the reasons why we are choosing option 4 here, the full booking system with a database. So we can say, let's go with option 4. Why? We need an option for users to pay us, and we want to have it all integrated. So users book a class, they pay for it, and they get an email notification. Maybe if that is helpful, needed, we can also users can also see all of the workshops they are attending, they booked. What is the best way forward to bring that to life? So now we ask the AI and we just see what happens. So you see Lovable is thinking, and in that way it takes a tiny bit longer to think, which is okay because it obviously has to give us a very good solution. So let's see, it says great choice. A full booking system with payments and email notifications will provide the best user experience. Here's the best way forward to bring this to life. Step 1, connect to Supabase. So required first. So we will basically do this first. Then before we can implement any backend functionality like booking storage, payments, or email notifications, you will need to connect your Lovable project to Supabase using our native integration. To get started, click the green Supabase button in the top right of the Lovable interface, and then connect to Supabase. Step 2, what we will build once Supabase is connected. We can implement database tables. So for bookings table, store users' bookings with workshop details, session info, payment status, users table. So we need users, authentication, user registration, login system, payment integration, email notifications, user features, and then the next steps. So we see that this is a bit of a more complex feature that we are now building, but at the same time, quite an exciting one, because once this is done, we have a website that is actually fully visible and also that has a very strong payment system that we can then go on and really sell out of our platform automatically without having and needing to go via different platforms as well. So let's start with step 1. So using the green button in the top right. So here is Supabase. This is this button, and it also says Manage Supabase. So we click on this button and we say Connect Supabase. So we haven't connected this yet. So we can say Connect a project, and we can say we want to create a project. Okay, we select an organization. We give the project name. We say AI. I actually want to change the name, so we say AI Practice Academy. We have to give it a very strong name. Choose your own. So we just choose a password. Let's take we copy this password, and what we do is we put this password, you see some of the things here, we put this password, let's quickly see where we put this in. So I have a Notion, we just need to see where Notion is. So you see this is a bit of a work here, workshop information, and we put this in here. We can kind of change this a bit. And we go with this. We put this in again, copy, paste, and we put this in here. So now we have a password and we can create our new project. So we can say, no, we don't want to save this right now. And now we have this project. And what we can do is we go back to Lovable and we can say connect a project. And we go to create project. Let's quickly do and renew this whole thing. We go to Supabase. We say connect Supabase, manage connected organizations. I think we have this continue, create project. So we quickly need to see how we call this now. So this is Frederica's organization AI Practice Academy. So let's quickly see how we connect this here. Because organizations, add more organizations. Let's see if we can do this here. We can say Frederica's organization, authorize Lovable. Now it connects to Supabase. Connection successful. So now we can go to this one here. We can say continue. Frederica's organization AI Practice Academy. And now we click on connect. So it kind of guides you through that. And if you get a bit lost, like you saw how I almost got a bit lost too, then just go back and connect to your organization and then connect to your project, and then you're fine. And how you send this up, super simple. You basically just open an account with Supabase and then you can automatically connect here to Lovable. And this is completely free, so I'm not paying anything for Supabase right now. So as long as you're just having hobby projects or projects that are not that frequently, like that doesn't have such a high volume, you are completely free with Supabase. And that's very nice because especially when you're just trying out it or just starting, you don't directly have to invest in Supabase. And it is a very powerful application, which you will be seeing now. So your app is now connected to Supabase. You can now work with a fully featured backend and add powerful features to make your app truly functional. So user accounts and so on. What's next? Just keeps building, so that's obviously not helpful, but what we can do is we can copy paste this all here in and can say next steps. So now we can say this is what we just worked on and what we want to achieve. Can you give me and tell me what our next steps should be to bring this to life? And then we copy paste this in and then we see what Lovable is answering. So this is just helpful sometimes, if you feel that the AI is completely missed and or like it's kind of lost, then you can just copy paste what you already worked with the AI to kind of remind them of where you were in your steps. If you find this a bit cumbersome to do this in Lovable itself, so you can also do this in Notion, or you can also keep some notes open like I did with the workshop, so you have everything in place. So this is, for example, when we say, okay, we want to have this in the workshop, we can say connect to Supabase. We already did this. And then step 2, we'll build once Supabase is connected, and we can kind of put this in here and we can say, okay, let's put this in the workshop just to make sure that we have everything here connected and we know like what we will be building. So now let's go back. And now we say, okay, your app is now connected to Supabase. What's next? We had that. And it says now our implementation plan, which is even better. So we could even say, okay, let's put this in here, take this out and say, okay, let's not do this, but let's put this in here. And so this is what we will be working with. And then for the password, we kind of so we put this in here. This is a test. This goes in here. And here we go. So now for our implementation, we see step up, set up authentication, create database schema. We come to this, what this means, build booking flow, integrate Stripe payments, email notifications, and user dashboard. So now should we begin with step 1? We says, yes, let's begin with step 1. So now we see what AI will be doing. So sign up for accounts, log in, log out, have their bookings tied to their user profile. So this basically now means that we built this full booking system. And now we see that Lovable tells us, great, let's implement the authentication system. And this will create the foundation for your booking system. First, I need to set up the database table for user profiles and create the authentication system. What does it basically do? It created a profiles table to store additional user information. ID is just ID, like a random number of numbers for the ID. So this is UUID. This is just a random, how do you say this? Random string of numbers and letters. Then we have email, full name, created at, updated at, and so on. I actually don't like full name. I more like first name and last name. So we can work on that. This is row-level security, and then create policies for profiles tables. Users can update their own profile. Users can insert their own profile. Function to handle new user registration, and so on. Please review and approve. And so we can say, I approve with all but the full name. Can you please, instead of the full name, use 2 columns, one for first name and one for last name. So you have the option to change this. And just for your information, so this is something that is a different kind of language. It's a language that writes those database tables. And we need those tables because we need to basically store information about the user. And if we don't have tables, there's no kind of, you could say, box to store this information. So a database, and what we're creating here, is basically nothing else than you could say, the structure in which we save then this information, kind of setting up the tables and setting up the table names. So as it says, create a table and call this table profiles. And then in this table, we have an ID, we have an email, we have full name, or now first name, last name. We have a timestamp that says this is created at, and we have another timestamp that says that's updated at. And then we have a primary key, which is basically nothing else than just to say that this is the primary key here. And then we have this profile security, as well as that we have policies, what the user can basically do with their specific profile. And then now we see that Lovable updated this and now have email, first name, last name created, updated at, and so on. And also we have a function to handle new user registration, create or replace the function, handle new user, and so insert this information. And we have a new ID and a new email, and then trigger to automatically create profile when user signs up. So this is what will then be created. So now we are fine with this, and now we can apply changes. And so now what we see is that our changes that we do is basically just the moment we click this button. This is what Lovable, kind of the AI agent, get, which is I have reviewed the SQL. SQL is basically this language here, and it looks good. Please run it. So now what Lovable is doing is basically that it runs this SQL command, which is nothing else than to say, okay, please create those tables and please create those functions and please create those policies and create this all so that when it's created in Supabase, we now basically give our system the opportunity, at least from the fundamentals, so that the user can sign up and can create their own profile. And so that's what Lovable is now doing. So it says, perfect, the database migration has been successfully completed. So this means database migration means, okay, now we basically added those columns to the database and also created this table itself. And now I will implement the authentication system with login, sign up, and user session management. So now our Lovable will be working, and what we will likely be seeing is like some sign up or sign in button. But let's see how Lovable is creating it. And we can also now go to our Supabase And in Supabase, we can see what has been created. So if we go to our Supabase, we have here our project overview, table editor, SQL editor, database, and authentication, and several other buttons. And here we now have, I just was confused, create a table, but we have here a table, it's called profiles. And if we go to profiles, we see exactly this table that has just been created. So ID, email, first name, last name, created at, updated it. And obviously there's no data in there because we didn't include any data. The only thing that we did is to create those different, you could say, parts of the table that the columns and the names that can then basically used by our application to say, okay, when a new user signs up, please add this data here to this database and know exactly what kind of columns it does have and how the columns are called. So let's go back. So now we see this is great. It's just white, but let's see quickly, there might be an issue. But let's see what Lovable did. And it says authentication system features, core authentication, user registration with first name, last name, email, and password, user login with email and password, secure session management, automatic profile creation when users sign up, the user interface, beautiful authentication, user menu. So this is something we apparently don't see. Security, row-level security policies ensure users can only access their own data, proper error handling, email verification, and ready features. Users can now sign up and sign in. User sessions persist across page refreshes. Profile data is automatically stored in the database. And clean user interface integrated with the existing design. Now that authentication is working, we can move on to step 2. Sounds amazing, but obviously this is a white space. So let's reload and see if this changes anything. And this now looks much better. But at the same time, what we will be seeing is here, it actually changed the design of our whole header, or like not header, but our whole header, which is obviously not something that we necessarily wanted to see, as well as that we don't necessarily wanted to see a sign-in button or a sign-up button here in the sense that how Lovable did create it. So we might have to make some changes here from a design perspective, but let's first see if it actually works and also see that how it changed here the buttons. So it now has a home button, a workshops button, and an about button. So it made some considerable changes of our application that we maybe not wanted to have that in that extent. But at the same time, let's see first if it actually works. And there's one thing that already strikes us very easily. It's only a sign-in button, but obviously we have sign up and sign in, depending if the user is already existing or not. But now let's do and say sign in. Now we see sign in, sign up button. So we need to sign up and we can say email and we put our email there. And then we put a test password. And we can say this test password we also put into the workshop. So we can say the test password is test123. So this is just for us so that we don't remember or don't forget. So we can say login data test. And then we can say this is, for example, our email and then test123. So this is just helpful for us, to keep this in mind. It's not live, so there's nothing, like someone can really play around with it and do something. And so it just gives you some options, but I see we just closed it now. So let's do sign up again, sign up. And now it says sign up error for security purposes. You can only request this after 18 seconds. So that's great. Not. So we have to figure out what exactly happened there. Sign in likely is not yet working, but we can try this out. And we can say password is our test123. And you see email is not confirmed, so this is not working. So let's see if we're now at our 18 seconds. Sign up. Yes, we have the sign up, but the question is, what does the sign up mean? Because the sign up would mean that we get some kind of notification or that we get an email that confirms our notification and I'm pretty sure we have not yet set this up. So we can go to Gmail and just quickly check here, Supabase authentication. It actually says it has reached it. So confirm your sign up, confirm your email, and let's see what happens. And now we see it actually did work, and it actually also created our email system. And we see here now that we can go to our profile, and we have an account with our email profile, my bookings, and sign out. So actually it was rather great what the AI created, because it created this account, it made it possible to sign in, and it made it possible with a profile, which is not yet working, and my bookings, which is also not yet working, but we can check and do sign out. Now we are signed out. We can do sign in again. And now let's see if this actually works. And we can sign in. Now you see we can sign in. So basically this whole authentication system that normally if you try to build it yourself takes a lot of time, you can now create in a very simple and very fast way, just by telling your Lovable to use this and build this for you with Supabase. So let's go out here and go back to our Lovable session here, where we are here with the AI, and we now saw that this is actually solved. We see also that this, obviously, as we said, the design is not as beautiful, but we can do this later, as well as that it might be more helpful to have a sign in, sign up button, so that we have a sign button whenever someone is already like a user, for example, or a sign up button if someone is new, or just have a button here, sign in, sign up, so two different ones, or just have sign in / sign up. And then also this one can obviously be a bit nicer. We can also have a more, you could say, pop-up where we have our logo there, where we have some more information, where it's just a tiny bit nicer designed. But I think for now, this is good to go, and we can now start to focus on step 2. So now steps 2, it says, now that authentication is working, we can move to step 2, create the bookings database schema. This will allow users to book workshops, store their booking information. Try signing up with a test account to see the authentication in action. The system is ready for users to create accounts, and we can now build the booking functionality on top of this foundation. So that's great. So now we can say, great, we tested the login function, and we now want to move on to step 2. Step 2, and we can say, let's do that. So now the AI already gave us the information of what it wants to do. So this is new. Great, we tested the login function. Now step 2, so create the bookings database schema. So what we see now is that AI creates another table, the workshops table, and it says, perfect. Now let's move on to step 2 and create the database schema for bookings. This will include tables for workshops, bookings, and payment tracking. So now we see create workshops table. So create table public workshops. This is again this ID, a random ID. We have a title column, description column, duration. So how long does the workshop take? Maximum participants. Then we have beginner, intermediate, advanced. We have price, cents. Interesting. We can just ask the AI if we are not sure what it exactly wants to say. Location, created at and updated it. Create workshop sessions table to store specific dates, times for workshops. So that's the ID, workshop ID. So here kind of we have a reference. So this is the workshop's ID that we see here. So it links to this workshop ID. Then the session date, start time, end time, available spots, created at, updated at. Create bookings table to store user bookings. So this is for the bookings. So we have the user ID. This is the reference here to this user's ID and the authentication system. We have the workshop session ID, which is the reference. And then we have booking status, payment status, total amounts, a booking date, created at, and so on. Then we have some of the security levels here, policies for the workshop, so anyone can view the workshop. So it's a public table. The same for workshop sessions. and then policies for bookings, so users can only see their own bookings. We have this information, and then indexes is just that it makes it, as it says, better performance. So we can review this, we can say that's fine, and then we click on apply changes, and the AI will automatically create those changes, and we will see if, similar to the authentication system, it will also already and directly create some additional functionality around those databases. And while we are waiting, I'm just seeing that we definitely have to change that, because this is like a bit of a weird, weird design here. But as said, if you get the functionality in, this is the more difficult part. The part of creating those websites here and doing the design is normally a bit of a more simpler way, especially for Lovable, because Lovable builds you like very beautiful front-end designs. And so that's something to keep in mind. But let's see what Lovable create. But you already see it writes into workshops card.tsx, and .tsx is basically TypeScript, and that's a language that it uses for the application. So it does not only create those databases, but what it also does is that it automatically creates those cards, creates those fonts, and creates those interconnected functionality and features. And this is also what we see in the workshop information. So we have our implementation plan. So set up authentication. This is what we already did. Now we are at create database schema. So design and create the bookings table, set up proper security policies, and link bookings to users and workshop sessions. So this is what we're currently doing. And then what we see as well, we have the booking flow, the Stripe payments, the email notifications, and the user dashboard. So we are still having several steps, but we are on a good path forward to now building this application. So now we see Lovable says perfect, the database schema has been created successfully. Now I will implement the booking functionality by creating the necessary hooks and components to handle workshops bookings with real data from the database. Now it says perfect, I've implemented the booking functionality with real database integration. Here's what I've created. Use workshop hook, so fetches workshops and their sessions from the database. So now it's not writing these workshops in the code anymore, but instead of writing these workshops in the code, it actually gets the data from the database tables and from the tables about the workshops. That it handles creating bookings and fetching user bookings. It now uses real data and handles booking creation. It displays real workshop data, and it works with the new data structure. So now we can see what it all does. And now it says users can now browse workshops and create bookings. The next steps would be to implement payment processing and a My Bookings page for users to view their bookings. So now what we can see is we can go to Features Bookings, and we can go here to the code mode. And even though, you don't need to understand the code in detail, but what we have been seeing is in these pages, when we go to workshops, that we saw all of these constant kind of workshops. But now instead of seeing those workshops directly here in the page, we see that now we have here the data of the workshops and use workshops. And so now we basically have these workshops not anymore hard-coded, but they're now getting directly from the database, and we are fetching them from the database. So you see here, use workshops. These are now the hooks. So now there are hooks, and we can go for use workshops. And then you see here, use the workshops, which basically means that we have an integration with Supabase, so our database. And then we also have here written down exactly what we kind of get from the database, but we have it here for the code, so basically and for our application, so application can use this information. So here's exactly this workshop. It's the workshop session that we put in before, and then it's also here this use workshops, and then here it uses specific content or like queries, you could say, to actually interact with this database and this information. So let's go back. So now view all workshops. No workshops found matching your search by date, by location. What is the reason for this? Because basically there are no workshops. We have not included any kind of workshops into our application, And for that reason, now it looks much more boring, you could almost say, and less interesting because we don't have anything here. But this is okay because we will filling this information up with our own data, because now the AI is not creating any sample data anymore. We can obviously ask them to just do that for us. But in this sense here now, it does not have that anymore. So if we go also to home, featured workshops, so we see view all workshops, it's empty, but in the home page, it still has some of those workshops in there just as a starter. So if you say like, oh, this is like super nice and I really enjoy that and I kind of want to keep this idea and design and know like what to put in, you can obviously always, copy paste this whole thing, featured workshops, and then save this image and put this in your workshop, for example. You could say, okay, let's put this here into the workshop. You put this in here and you do image. And then we can upload an image. Let's see, here we have photos. We upload this image. And in that sense, we have this image in here. And in that way, even if maybe you want to keep some of those, you can just have a look of how the AI did that for some inspiration. But this is exactly it. Even those success stories we can later put into database so that we don't have 3 of them here just there. And maybe you also, like at some point want to create those databases and how do you say this, those success stories and create some more success stories and actually real ones, not like fake ones here. And then you can do that here. But now this is a good start. And what we also see is that the AI is changing all of our designs. So if we want to not go with this design that it now creates, which is more like a purple-pink design instead of our design, which we have here, then we can ask the AI and say, hey, can you please change that for me? Or alternatively, what we can do again, we can make a design here and we can say, hey, please, also make an image of the design so that we have this in our pictures so that later on we can make those design changes. We put the image in here as well. We put this again for the photos. We put the image in and here we go. So this is just for you if you want to really keep the design but don't want to work for it now. Otherwise, you can also make those design changes directly now. And then what you can also do is if you want to, for example, keep the design changes, you go to code mode. We go to headers, components. We go to header hero here. And we can have a quick look. Does it do any design here? Any colors? No, there are no colors. So we can check for index or app CSS. So here are several colors that the AI is giving us. But this is something, as said, this goes a bit more into the details. So for example, the background here, a gradient background, it gives us some information. And also another background, linear. So we have different backgrounds here. And we could play and take this into account, but we can also do this later. So this one was a quick excursus. So let's go on and build the system. Users can now browse and so on. So now we can go back to our session here. So now we have our implementation plan. So we can copy paste this and we can say to the AI, great, then let's continue with step 3 as we outlined in our implementation plan. So this is sometimes helpful if you feel that the AI kind of lost it. Here it seems that the next step would be to implement payment processing. This seems that the AI still really knows where we are because this is build the booking flow, create booking modal, form where users click book now, collect user details and workshop selection and show booking confirmation. So this is now what the AI is building. So perfect. Let's continue with step 3 and build the booking flow, create a booking modal form that appears when users click book now, collects user details and shows booking confirmation. So this is now what we will be building. And after that, we will be building the Stripe payments. That's something that we have to figure out how easily we can do that. So maybe we do like one additional video for that because we already, this was a lot for this one already. But let's see how we're getting along here. So you see still loading, still writing. So we will see in a bit like what it does. And we see here now that this is a bit of a longer flow. Show booking confirmation. So we will have to wait a tiny bit. But if you haven't done that, and if you do this for your own workshop, for your own application, always keep in mind that you test it. So whenever the AI is doing something, make sure you test if it actually does what you want it to do. So this is also for step 2 here, and so on. Now it says, okay, perfect. I've implemented a comprehensive booking flow for step 3. Here's what I've created. Booking model, a detailed form that collects users' information and shows workshop details. Success model that appears after booking confirmation. Key features, detailed booking form with user contact information, workshop details, form validation, payment notice, success confirmation, better error handling. Updated workshop card to integrate the booking flow. So we would say, okay, it makes more sense that while you book the application or like for the workshop, you directly basically pay and integrate Stripe. So potentially these are like 2 steps, this one and the next one, that are kind of a bit interconnected and we might have to update. But at the same time, I think it's a good start to show how it works. So now let's see what happens if we click on Book Now and if this is actually working. So we see it's not working because we maybe do not have real workshops here. So now we can say, great, but so far we do not have any workshops in our database. Can you create some test workshops so that we can try out if that Book Now button is actually working? So let's see what the AI is telling us, because so far we can't test because these are just test workshops and there are no real workshops. So it makes it very difficult for us to figure out, okay, is this what the AI built actually working? So now you see it says, you're absolutely right. Let's add some test workshops to the database so we can test the booking functionality. I'll create a variety of workshops with different sessions. So now it's putting these insert test workshops into the database, insert, and so on. So we can all change this, but let's apply those changes because this will help us to figure out if it actually works. And for now, this is the most important point. You want to make sure it works because later on you can delete all of those workshops again. And I will show you how to do this. But at the same time, for these ones, it makes sense to test. And so for that reason, now we have this test data. So we can reload this. We can also open here in a preview. And now let's see, Book Now. So these are still not the right workshops where it did that. So now this should work now. Book Now. And you see nothing happens. So we can now figure out if this may be the reason that we are not logged in. But then we have to figure out, is this really the best way to do this? Because obviously, ideally, a user can book a workshop wherever, if they're signed in or not. And if they're like not signed in and then book a workshop, they should be automatically sign in or like sign up when they book this workshop. So what did we have? Test 1, 2, 3. So now we're signed up. No, we don't want to save this. So now we can say view available dates. book now, and we see now the booking works. So it actually works, but it requires us to first be logged in. And so this is something that is not the best user experience, and we have to work on this, but we can just test this now. And we can say here, phone number, special requests or diary requirements. If you don't obviously do dietary requirements and you're not offering something like that, you have to change this too. After confirming your booking, you'll be redirected to a secure payment processor to complete your payment of $99. Confirm booking. So now the booking has been created. Check your email for details. So this is something that now works smoothly, and that's really good to know. But as we said, there are some issues in there. We can also look my bookings, and we see that there are no my bookings yet. So there are some hiccups in there yet. And these are the hiccups that you figure out, like why it's so important to test, so that you're always up to date with what exactly is going on. And is this really exactly how you want to have this process? So now we can say sign out again. And if we are signed out and then book these workshops, it's not working. And obviously also from a sales perspective or a lead generation perspective, it's better if you say, okay, if they're like not signed up users and they book a workshop, then they book the workshop directly and they pay directly and they're automatically signed up, for example, so they see their bookings. But for signed up users, you might also then additionally build or like maybe offer some additional subscriptions later on where they can work and apply and sign up for those workshops almost for a free version, because they're paying for subscription of some of those workshops. Or maybe they pay for subscription, and based on the subscription, they can choose 3, 4, 5 different workshops as a bundle, and in this bundle automatically sign up for those workshops. So there are like several things where you can play around with, and obviously also from the design perspective. But I think this is a good start, what we see. And now it's part to make sure that to explain to the AI exactly what we need to change to make this work. And we can ask the AI, okay, do we want to make the changes now, or do we want to make those changes later? So what we can do is we can go back here. And we can say, great. Let's see. Great. That works well. However, there are some hiccups and some questions from my side. So it's good to tell the AI it actually works well, because this is, okay, it's working. We don't need to change everything. There's just some things that are not working. So for right now, the flow is 1, I need as a user to sign in to be able to book workshops. However, that is not a good user experience. It would be better if everyone can sign up for workshops and book them, but then book them and see those bookings in their booking page. How do we make this possible, that these people without an account then also become users that have an account? Can we ask them to, for example, type in a password as well when signing up, or give them a booking only account with only an email for now, and ask them to complete their profile later for more additional features? Or what is best practice, given that we also have a Stripe payment we want to connect now for paying for the workshops? So now that we can do, and it's just describing what we experience and describing what doesn't work well. And in that sense, we give the AI several options and we see what it does. Sometimes if you realize, okay, the AI is working very fast and it's working before even like coding, before you finished your thoughts and your deliberate decision, you can also say, dear AI, let's first make a quick step, only the planning, and then we do the application. However, Lovable is a bit better in that compared to some other AI coding tools like Cursor, for example, or Claude Code, in that it focuses more on first understanding and then building. So great question. You're absolutely right about the user experience. There are several common approaches for this scenario, and I would recommend the guest checkout with account creation approach, which is considered best practice for booking payment systems. Here are the main options. Recommended. Users can book workshops without signing up first. During checkout, they provide email plus basic info. After successful payment, we automatically create an account for them, send them login credentials via email. They can access their bookings immediately and set a password later. Benefits, lowest friction for first-time users, no abandoned bookings, and so on. Quick sign-up during booking. This is slightly more friction, but users have immediate access. Good question. I don't know. I think this really depends on several people. I sometimes find this super irritating that you have to put in a password while you're booking a workshop. So this might be a tiny bit more friction. That's true. Email only accounts might also be possible. But we can do the option 1. Let's do option 1. I think option 1, all of the options are good. Later you can change them. Maybe you know a specific system that you find super smooth. So I also like option 3, email only accounts. But if the AI here in that sense gives option 1 as a recommendation, and it's it knows exactly what is possible with Lovable and Supabase. So in that sense, I would just go with it. If you have a specific option that you prefer, obviously you can do this as well. So implementation would involve this. So we can say, yes, please implement this option 1. And then what we can do is, again, we can put this in here and we can say, for example, update, we made some changes to the authentication and booking system. Now guest checkout and later info of password. And then we can say here, for example, we put this in some information. So you can obviously also add more information, exactly what you did. So it just helps you to keep this in mind. Now it says perfect, I'll implement the guest checkout with the account creation approach. This will require several changes. First, let's update the database to allow guest bookings and add fields for guest information. Then update the booking flow to work without authentication. And finally, we'll add Stripe integration for payment processing. So now we see bookings, guest email, guest first name, last name, and so on. Make user ID nullable to allow guest bookings. Here are several policies, allow anyone to create bookings. Users can view their own bookings or booking with their email. And users can update their own bookings or bookings with their email. So we can say apply changes, and then the AI is basically running this again. So this is what we will be doing in this workshop. All of the other parts, the other steps, so step 4, 5, and 6 here, integrate Stripe payments, email notifications, and user dashboard. These are the things that we will be doing afterwards in another video, because otherwise this will become very long. But you have then a full authentication system, you have great databases, and you build a booking flow. So let's work for the AI to be done. So we see that it now uses bookings TS. So it creates again several parts of the application in here. And we now again have to wait a tiny bit while it is doing this. In the meantime, we can go to our Supabase here again. We can update this, so basically we don't even need to refresh this, but we see bookings here, profiles, workshop sessions and workshops. So we see now all of these tables in here, and we see that the AI also created those workshops for us, these workshops for us, these example workshops. So we have here these IDs, we have the titles, description, duration, maximum participants, level, and so on, and the price sense, which basically just says, okay, we have this, and this is just 149, 199, and so on dollars. And you see this now for all of those. We have one booking, which pending, however, this is the one that I just clicked on, and we automatically see how it works. We have the profiles. So here we have me as a user. We have workshop sessions. These are all of those different sessions for the different users. And so here we see the workshop ID for that. And then the workshops, that's what we already saw. So now let's go back and see if AI created this. No, it's still running. So it sees it makes several changes now to our application. And then always what you see is it takes a tiny bit longer when it updates information instead of just creating it the first time. And that's normally because it almost is simpler to just start fresh instead of integrating everything together. And that's where you normally also get the most troubles, you could say, and the most issues is when you connect the different pieces. However, Lovable is rather error prone. It's normally rather good, so it doesn't create that many errors. And if it does, you can normally ask it to fix it, and it might take some time and sometimes also several iterations, but then normally it finds its answer. And if not, there are also some troubleshooting opportunities. If you go to the support page of Lovable, that explains to you exactly how you can prompt the AI to really figure out and make it work. And so now we are done, and it says, perfect, I've implemented the guest checkout with account creation approach. Here's what's now working. Key features, guest bookings, automatic account creation, Stripe payment integration, and seamless user experience. So what you need to do next, set up your Stripe secret key. You'll need to add your Stripe secret key to the Supabase. You can do this at, and so on. So this is what we will be doing next. So next, in the next video, tomorrow, we will be talking about the Stripe secret key and how you can set up Stripe. But how it works now is that users visit the workshops, no login required. They click book now, they click continue to payment, they complete the payment, account is automatically created, and access the bookings anytime. So now we can put how it works and put this in our workshop here. And we can remove the implementation. So now we know how it works and we have everything together, and we can now try this out by going back to our application. We can preview this, and now we can see here our featured workshops. These might be still workshops that are hard-coded. They might not work. No, they don't work. But if we go to workshops, and now we are clicking on some of these dates and click book now, we see that now we can book it, even though we are not logged in. So now we can say we are Hans Hase. We can put an email address. So this is always a nice one that you can do +1. In that way you can test. So otherwise, the system will see that you're already logged in, which you're, in that sense, you just want to test it. So you put phone number, you make this, and you continue to payment. And we see this is not working. Need our platform, new to our platform, we create an account for you automatically after payment so you can track your bookings. But we see that this is not working. And so now what we have to do is we go back to AI and we say, oh, build unsuccessful. Here you see something did not work. So here error cannot find name Supabase. So we just click on try to fix, and this might explain why it's not working. So we are now waiting and we see there's an error. We see the error here, cannot find the name Supabase. So we should wait until the AI fixes this error. If it fixes this error, it might be that this, what we just experienced, is automatically solved. If not, we might have to ask AI more specifically what exactly is problematic and explain what is happening. But in that sense now, we saw that there's an error, and we now need to wait for Lovable to fix this. But what we can be doing is, if we go back here into Supabase, we can do enter, and we see that there were some bookings here, that user ID, booking status, and so on. So there were some tables, or it put it in the same table. So it put it in the same table, and it put also, you see here, our guest. But what it did is that booking status, so we booked once, but we have here several bookings. So we have way more bookings with our guest name than we actually were supposed to have. And so what we see is that it made some changes here, and we need to understand those changes, especially because what might have happened is that now it says you can book either way if you're logged in or not, and this might confuse the application, because we have profiles here, but our booking that we did with our own name, with the logged in name, basically disappeared. And so this might be that there is some error in there that basically creates what we have here. And maybe this is this one where we have guest email is null, 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 which basically might mean that this is the one that we did pending with a user ID. But let's quickly see if the AI is ready. And it the error has been fixed by adding the missing import statement for the Supabase client. So we can try it out and see if this solved also the problem that we experienced here. So we go book now, we type in a name, we type in an email address, and we click on continue to payment, and we see it still doesn't work. So it still doesn't work. Let's see and ask the AI. And we can say, great, thanks, but we have an issue. When we book a workshop in the front end as a non-existing user, so a guest, and we click on, we get the booking model to fill out our information, but then when we try to click on we can just when we try to click on continue to payment, fails. Is that as the payment system with Stripe is not yet set up, or is that a mistake in the system? So we can ask, because what might happen is that it's actually not a mistake, and the only reason that it's not possible is that we haven't integrated Stripe yet, because obviously this would be the next step. And it can be in that sense that AI basically made this button, you could say, clickable, but that's the main reason why it's failing. And we see now here that this is exactly what's happening. It's failing because we have not yet integrated Stripe. So looking at the error logs, I can see the issue, the Stripe integration is failing because the Stripe secret key is not configured in your Supabase Edge function secrets. So that's the main reason. It is that we haven't figured out Stripe. But what we achieved is quite amazing, and just with a simple clicks and working with Lovable, we were able to actually set up Supabase. So now we have all of those tables. We have a sign in and a sign up button here. We can sign into the system, and we also managed, not yet on the home page, but in the workshops page, to actually have all of those workshops that are now in a database. That means that you don't have to write anything in the code to make it work and visible here. But it all's running through the databases. So that's great progress. So that's what you can achieve with Lovable and Supabase together, which is extremely powerful. And with that, I hope this video was helpful, and you keep building your product with and your website with Lovable. and see you next time.